Hi, this is Giovanna Cano from the Online News Association at the University of South Florida, St. Petersburg. Today I'm here at ACES 2019 in Providence, Rhode Island, and I'm speaking with Rupal Patel, professor at Northeastern University and CEO and founder of Vocal ID. She's here with me to speak about her experiences with speech technology, the future of voice AI, and the diversity it could further impact in our society.
Went into speech pathology, I knew really very little about it, but when I got there, I learned about this entire world of using technologies for people with different kinds of speech disabilities. And at that time, the first technology I was exposed to was speech recognition technology, mostly for spinal cord injured patients who would use it as a way for dictation. And so I got interested in that whole realm from there. I naively went back to do my PhD, thinking I was going to make a machine that could understand people who couldn't speak very clearly. And I knew very little about it then, but now it's a whole nother world. So I don't know if everyday people are necessarily going to replace their voice with synthetic voice or with voice AI, but I do think we can augment our voice. So we can't be in front of every audience in the physical world. Like for example, people who are influencers can't be in front of their fan base on a constant basis, but can you then project yourself in this alternative world through a voice that reflects who you are? And not necessarily in an impersonation way, but in a way that can continue to connect them to their fan base. That's on the influencer side, but think about just an average person. If I wanted, my mother lives in LA, and my parents both live in LA. Well, what if I could, in the middle of the day, because the time difference between Boston and LA is 3 hours, it's actually really inconvenient to have normal interactions. So for part of the interaction, rather than just being on a phone, what if you could text a message and that message could come out in my voice to her through her a speaking device or something, like through an Alexa or a Google Home. That's a way to keep connected with people you love through this technology. So I think we can think more broadly about how this technology can influence both everyday people and even the super users. Kids who have disabilities, regardless of what the color of their skin is or their ethnic background, they all kind of sound like they're just American kids, and they're not, right? You think about Stephen Hawking, he had an American English accented voice, yet he was British, and that's just, that's not even that much of an atrocity. But you see a young kid, a young girl who is of Indian origin, who has a adult male voice, that's American sounding. Well, it's not just that it's a misfit. It's also the fact that one of the families of a girl who we made a voice for is from, I believe it was Indonesia, and her mom said, when I travel back home with my daughter, there's already so many barriers to disability acceptance in my country that now with a voice of her, if we can make a voice for her that sounds like it has a little bit of accent, she's grown up here. And she's non-speaking, but if it can make her feel and be almost tied to her identity of self in other ways, she would be more accepted by the extended family members as well. And that's meaningful to not just the individual, but it's meaningful to the community of people around that individual. Oh, I think we're constantly looking out for, is that a voice in my tribe? Is that a voice of my, do I understand that voice? So voice carries information about socioeconomic class, about gender identity, about, all sorts of things. And we are super finely attuned to it, even if we can't put our words to it. So from a very simple hello, we know if a friend of ours is upset or angry or whatever. So I think that having voices that are culturally tied will bind communities together more, and it'll also be ways in which we can start saying that there aren't certain voices that have a higher cachet than others. So right now, because we only hear a certain kind of voice, what we're really saying is all the other voices out there with all these different accents, they're not worth hearing as much as the more conventional voice, let's say. I think it's the same as in magazines when we used to only see pictures of certain kinds of models, and now we've changed that to see diversity. We're going to have to see that in voice too.
Yeah, I do believe that representation matters. And another presenter here, copy editor by the name of Steve Bien-Aimé, he also spoke on diversity and inclusion. And he mentioned that representation matters. And I think that voice representation is also included in that.
Yeah.
And to bring a point to that, in your presentation, you mentioned that voice AI would encourage democratic diversity. Can you elaborate on that and how that would have an impact on our society?
Yeah, I said it was going to democratize the kinds of voices we hear. What I mean by that is right now there's this implicit, it's not explicit, there's an implicit message being said by the kinds of voices we use in our products and services that certain kinds of accents are not as desirable. And thus, companies are not going to spend money and time on building those out. But and if you take also, for example, the genderless voice that was recently built, certain kinds of voices, you have to identify with either a male or female. Well, that's not true. So why can't and the message behind that genderless voice was, let's have a Google Home or an Alexa or a Microsoft Cortana or whatever have a voice that isn't qualified by gender, right? So I think that there's going to be, it's not just going to be about gender, it's also going to be about accent, it's also going to be about age. Our technology today is very ageist, sexist, racist, and all of these things, and yet I think that our world is not accepting that anymore culturally, and so I think that's gonna change, and it's only possible in the world of AI to blend these things together, right? Human beings, how rare is it to find an individual who has a variety of different accents? You can't. So you can only do this in the digital world when you have the ability to combine and mix and bring power, bring new kinds of entities into the world.